In an age where our digital footprints often outlast our physical presence, where every click, every post, every interaction is meticulously archived in the vast, immutable cloud, a profound question emerges. What happens when our digital afterlife becomes more vivid, more persistent than the memories held in the hearts of those we leave behind? Is the promise of digital immortality a comfort or a subtle barrier to true remembrance and the natural process of letting go? This video is for you if you're searching for a quiet contemplation on the nature of legacy and remembrance in the digital age, a deeper understanding of what truly defines our lasting impact, a gentle reminder that some things are meant to be felt, not just archived. If that sounds like you, just stay and listen, as if you're listening to the quiet truth of your own heart. The silence in the house was not the quiet of peace, but the heavy stillness of absence. Elias sat amidst boxes overflowing with hard drives, memory cards, and dusty photo albums. His grandmother, Elias, had passed away 6 months ago, leaving behind not just a void in their lives, but a colossal digital footprint. Elias had been a pioneer, an early adopter of every social media platform, every cloud storage service, every new gadget that promised to capture and preserve life's fleeting moments. Her online presence was a meticulously curated masterpiece. Perfectly filtered photos, witty anecdotes, profound reflections, and a vast network of digital connections. She had often joked that her digital self would live forever, a legacy etched in the immutable code of the internet. Elias, tasked with sorting through her digital estate, initially felt a sense of reverence. He imagined himself piecing together a comprehensive portrait of his grandmother, a digital mosaic that would allow her essence to endure. He spent weeks sifting through terabytes of data, old blogs, forgotten forums, endless photo streams, and countless video clips. He found conversations from decades ago, digital friendships that had blossomed and faded, and a meticulously documented chronicle of her life, from mundane daily routines to grand adventures. But the more he delved into this digital archive, the more a strange, unsettling feeling began to grow. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming, a cacophony of information that drowned out the quiet, nuanced memories he held in his heart. The perfectly curated online persona, while impressive, felt increasingly distant from the warm, sometimes messy, always loving grandmother he knew. He found himself scrolling through thousands of photos of her smiling, vibrant, adventurous. Yet, he struggled to recall the specific scent of her homemade bread, the comforting weight of her hand in his, the way her eyes would crinkle at the corners when she truly laughed. The digital archive was a perfect record, but it lacked the texture, the warmth, the very human imperfections that made his grandmother real. The silence in the house deepened, filled not with the echoes of her laughter, but with the hum of his laptop, processing endless streams of data. He had hoped to find her in the cloud, but all he found was a meticulously constructed ghost, a digital echo that, paradoxically, made her feel more absent than ever. The promise of digital immortality, he realized, was a double-edged sword. It preserved the surface, the curated image, but it threatened to overshadow the deeper, more fragile memories that resided only in the heart. He had sought to find her in the data, but the data, in its vastness, was obscuring the very essence he longed to connect with. The digital footprint, so carefully cultivated, was not a bridge to remembrance, but a barrier, a constant reminder of what could be captured, and what, by its very nature, could not. The silence was not empty. It was pregnant with the unspoken truth that some things are simply not meant to be archived, not meant to be quantified, not meant to be reduced to data. They are meant to be felt, to be lived, to be cherished in the quiet, sacred space of the human heart. Elias had always admired his grandmother Elias's foresight. She had embraced technology with an almost religious fervor, believing it held the key to a form of immortality. Her digital legacy was a testament to this belief, a meticulously constructed narrative of a life lived vibrantly and publicly. He had initially approached the task of managing her digital estate with a sense of purpose, a filial duty to ensure her online presence continued to thrive. He imagined her digital self, a shimmering avatar, living on in the cloud, a comforting thought in the face of her physical absence. But as he delved deeper into the labyrinthine archives, a profound tension began to build. The sheer volume of data was overwhelming, a digital ocean of memories that threatened to drown him. Every photo, every post, every comment was a fragment, a pixelated echo of a life that was both intimately familiar and increasingly alien. He found himself spending hours, days, lost in this digital world, trying to piece together the real Elias from the endless stream of curated content. He would read her old blog posts, listen to her voice in forgotten podcasts, and scroll through countless comments from people he didn't know, all expressing their admiration for the digital persona she had so carefully crafted. The tension wasn't just the overwhelming volume. It was the unsettling realization that the digital Elias, the one preserved in the cloud, was a perfect, unchanging entity, devoid of the messy, contradictory, and ultimately human qualities that made his grandmother so beloved. The digital footprint, so carefully cultivated, was not a bridge to remembrance, but a barrier, a constant reminder of what could be captured and what, by its very nature, could not. He found himself comparing his own fading, imperfect memories of her, the way she'd hum off-key while cooking, the quiet wisdom in her eyes when she listened, the subtle scent of her favorite tea, to the flawless, eternal digital archive. And in that comparison, his own memories felt inadequate, almost irrelevant. The tension mounted as he realized that the very act of preserving her digitally was, paradoxically, preventing him from truly mourning her. He was so busy managing her digital afterlife that he wasn't living his own present, wasn't allowing himself to feel the raw, unedited pain of her absence. The digital Elias was a ghost in the machine, a perfect echo that prevented him from hearing the quiet whispers of his own heart. He had sought to control grief, to intellectualize sorrow, to manage loss as if it were a project. But what if the very act of trying to control, to manage, to outsource, was what kept him from truly living? What if the raw, unedited experience of grief was not a problem to be solved, but a sacred passage to be walked? What if the tears he had held back were not a sign of weakness, but a cleansing rain, washing away the illusions of control and inviting him into a deeper, more authentic relationship with life itself? The digital afterlife, he realized, was not a comfort, but a subtle barrier, preventing him from truly engaging with his own humanity. The tension built, a silent crescendo, urging him to break free from the digital cage he had built around his heart. In the ancient city of Savatthi, there lived a young monk who was deeply troubled by the impermanence of all things. He saw how everything around him, from the blossoming flowers to the grandest palaces, was subject to decay and change. This realization filled him with a profound sense of unease, for he longed for something that would last, something eternal and unchanging. He meditated diligently, seeking a way to transcend this pervasive impermanence. One day, as he sat beneath a Bodhi tree, the Buddha, knowing of the monk's inner turmoil, appeared before him. The Buddha spoke, "All conditioned things are impermanent. When one perceives this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity." The Buddha then illustrated this truth with a simple yet profound observation. He pointed to a beautiful flower that had just bloomed, its petals vibrant and full of life. "Behold this flower, O monk," the Buddha said. "It is beautiful, fragrant, and full of vitality. But will it remain so forever?" The monk replied, "No, Lord. It will wither, its petals will fall, and it will return to the earth." The Buddha then pointed to a mighty river, flowing ceaselessly towards the ocean. "Observe this river, O monk," he continued. "Its waters are constantly moving, never the same from one moment to the next. Yet, it is still called a river. Does it remain the same?" The monk pondered for a moment and replied, "No, Lord. Its waters are ever-changing, yet its essence as a river remains." The Buddha smiled gently. "So it is with all conditioned things, O monk. They are constantly changing, constantly arising and passing away. There is nothing in this world that is truly permanent, truly unchanging. Even our bodies, our minds, our memories, they are all subject to this law of impermanence. When we cling to what is impermanent, we create suffering for ourselves. When we understand and accept this truth, we find liberation." The monk listened intently, and a profound understanding dawned upon him. He realized that his longing for permanence was the very source of his unease. True peace lay not in finding something unchanging, but in embracing the ever-changing nature of existence. He saw that even the most meticulously preserved digital archive, the most carefully curated online persona, was ultimately subject to this same law. The data might persist, but the essence, the living, breathing reality it sought to capture, was always in flux, always moving, always impermanent. The digital footprint, though seemingly eternal, was merely a shadow, a fleeting reflection of a reality that could never be truly contained. The true essence of a life, the Buddha taught, was not in its static preservation, but in its dynamic unfolding, moment by moment, breath by breath. And in that unfolding, there was a beauty, a profound truth that transcended all forms, all data, all attempts to hold on. The monk, now free from his clinging to permanence, found a deep and abiding peace, a peace that arose not from the absence of change, but from the acceptance of it. He understood that the digital afterlife, while offering an illusion of permanence, could never truly capture the living, breathing essence of a human being, nor could it truly offer the liberation that comes from embracing the impermanence of all things. Dhammapada verse 277. All conditioned things are impermanent. When one perceives this with wisdom, one turns away from suffering. This is the path to purity. Dhammapada, chapter 20. The Path, Magga verse 277 source. Dhammapada commentary, story of the monk who was a weaver. This story is a reinterpretation of the theme of impermanence, not a direct story from the Dhammapada commentary. The verse is from XX.2, which is about impermanence. Elias had always approached life with a meticulous, almost scientific precision. He believed that if he could just gather enough data, analyze enough information, he could understand and control any situation. This belief extended to his grief over Elias' passing. He saw her digital footprint as a vast, comprehensive data set, a perfect record of her life that, if properly processed, would allow him to maintain a connection, to keep her alive in a tangible, accessible form. He spent countless hours sifting through her digital archives, convinced that within the terabytes of data, he would find the essence of his grandmother, a way to preserve her beyond the ephemeral nature of physical existence. He believed he was honoring her, ensuring her legacy would endure in the digital realm. But the Buddha's teaching on impermanence, illustrated by the fleeting beauty of a flower and the ever-flowing river, began to subtly shift his perspective. He started to see that his relentless pursuit of digital preservation was, paradoxically, a form of clinging, a resistance to the natural flow of life and death. The more he tried to hold on to the digital era, the more he felt a disconnect from the real, living memories of her that resided in his heart. He realized that the digital archive, while a perfect record, lacked the warmth, the spontaneity, the very human imperfections that made his grandmother real. It was a static representation of a dynamic, ever-changing being. The insight began to dawn. true remembrance was not about perfect recall or digital preservation, but about the living, breathing experience of memory, the quiet echoes in the heart, the subtle shifts in feeling that came with accepting the impermanence of all things. He saw that his attempts to create a permanent digital afterlife were, in essence, an attempt to defy the fundamental law of existence. The digital footprint, though seemingly eternal, was merely a shadow, a fleeting reflection of a reality that could never be truly contained. The true essence of a life, he realized, was not in its static preservation, but in its dynamic unfolding, moment by moment, breath by breath. And in that unfolding, there was a beauty, a profound truth that transcended all forms, all data, all attempts to hold on. He began to understand that his grief was not a problem to be solved with data, but a sacred passage to be walked, a natural process of letting go and transforming. The tears he had held back, the raw emotions he had suppressed in his pursuit of digital solace, were not weaknesses to be avoided, but vital parts of his healing journey. He saw that by trying to outsource his grief to a digital archive, he was denying himself the profound, transformative power of true mourning. The ghost in the machine, he realized, was not a comfort, but a subtle barrier, preventing him from truly engaging with his own humanity. The digital afterlife, while offering an illusion of permanence, could never truly capture the living, breathing essence of a human being, nor could it truly offer the liberation that comes from embracing the impermanence of all things. He began to find a sense of peace not in the absence of change, but in the acceptance of it. He understood that true legacy was not about leaving behind a perfect digital record, but about the impact one had on the hearts and lives of others, an impact that transcended data and lived on in the quiet, sacred space of human connection. And in that realization, a new kind of freedom emerged, a freedom to truly live, to truly feel, and to truly let go. Close your eyes, gently. Feel the subtle rhythm of your breath, a quiet anchor in the midst of a world that constantly demands your attention, your data, your simulated emotions. Inhale, and imagine drawing in a sense of spaciousness, a vastness that holds all your thoughts and feelings without judgment. Exhale, and release any tension, any need to control or categorize. Just breathe. Allow your awareness to settle in the quiet chamber of your heart. Notice any sensations that arise, not as data points to be analyzed, but as fleeting whispers from your inner landscape. A warmth, a coolness, a gentle flutter. These are not problems to be solved, but simply experiences to be observed, like clouds drifting across an endless sky. You are the sky, vast and unchanging. Your thoughts and emotions are the clouds, temporary and ever-shifting. There is no need to chase them, no need to push them away. Just observe them, gently, as they pass. And as you observe, notice the space between the clouds, the clear, boundless expanse that is always present. This is the stillness that lies beneath the surface of all experience, the peace that is always available, even in the midst of sorrow, even in the face of loss. Allow yourself to rest in this stillness, even for a few moments. Feel the gentle hum of existence, the quiet pulse of life within you. There is nothing to do, nowhere to go, nothing to achieve. Just be. And in this being, allow yourself to feel whatever arises. The echoes of grief, the whispers of fear, the stirrings of hope. Welcome them all, without resistance, without judgment. They are all part of the human experience, part of the rich tapestry of life. And in welcoming them, you reclaim your power, your capacity to feel deeply, to live fully, to embrace the entirety of your being. This is not about escaping pain, but about transforming your relationship with it. It is about learning to sit with discomfort, to allow it to be, without letting it define you. It is about discovering that even in the deepest sorrow, there is a quiet strength, a profound resilience, a boundless capacity for love. And as you rest in this stillness, know that you are not alone. You are connected to all beings, to the vast, interconnected web of life. And in that connection, there is a deep and abiding peace that transcends all understanding. When you are ready, gently open your eyes. Bring this stillness, this awareness, this peace into your day. Let it guide your actions, inform your choices, and illuminate your path. This is the practice. This is the path. This is the way. Elias looked at the vast digital archive of his grandmother, Elias. The terabytes of data, the meticulously curated online persona, the promise of digital immortality. It all seemed so compelling, so comforting. Yet, a profound emptiness remained, a silent, persistent echo in the chambers of his heart. He had sought to find her in the cloud, but all he found was a meticulously constructed ghost, a digital echo that, paradoxically, made her feel more absent than ever. He had sought to control grief, to intellectualize sorrow, to manage loss as if it were a project. But what if the very act of trying to control, to manage, to outsource, was what kept him from truly living? What if the raw, unedited experience of grief was not a problem to be solved, but a sacred passage to be walked? What if the tears he had held back were not a sign of weakness, but a cleansing rain, washing away the illusions of control and inviting him into a deeper, more authentic relationship with life itself? He thought of the Buddha's teaching on impermanence, the fleeting beauty of a flower, the ever-flowing river. He understood that even the most meticulously preserved digital archive, the most carefully curated online persona, was ultimately subject to this same law. The data might persist, but the essence, the living, breathing reality it sought to capture, was always in flux, always moving, always impermanent. The digital footprint, though seemingly eternal, was merely a shadow, a fleeting reflection of a reality that could never be truly contained. The true essence of a life, he realized, was not in its static preservation, but in its dynamic unfolding, moment by moment, breath by breath. And in that unfolding, there was a beauty, a profound truth that transcended all forms, all data, all attempts to hold on. He looked out the window, at the world moving on, oblivious to the quiet revolution happening within him. The sun was setting, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, a fleeting masterpiece that would soon fade into darkness. And in that fading, there was a beauty, a poignant reminder of the impermanence of all things. He had spent his life chasing permanence, building structures that he believed would last forever. But perhaps true permanence was not in what endured, but in what was deeply felt, deeply lived, deeply surrendered. What if the true art of living was not in holding on, but in learning how to let go, gracefully, completely, beautifully? And in that letting go, what if he found not an end, but a new beginning, a vast, open space where life, in all its messy, unpredictable, beautiful truth, could finally unfold? This journey, this quiet unfolding, is yours. No algorithms, no shortcuts, just you, and the gentle rhythm of your own breath. If this resonated, if a quiet space opened within you, simply stay. Listen to the next whisper. The path reveals itself, one breath at a time.